and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Last week, we featured the Director General of the International Energy Atomic Agency, Dr. Rafael Grossi, on Nigeria's relationship with the UN watchdog and how Nigeria intends to use nuclear energy for developmental purposes. This week, we bring the conversation home as we speak with the Director General of the Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission, Professor Yusuf Ahmed, on how much progress is really going on ground with Nigeria's plans for the development of nuclear energy. Professor Ahmed, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much for hosting me. Yeah.
When you introduce yourself at conferences or wherever it is you introduce yourself at and you talk about nuclear energy, what response do you normally get?
Thank you very much. Actually, in Nigeria today, many people are aware about the applications of nuclear energy. And I'm happy because the applications in the peaceful area, in non-power applications, are so numerous in Nigeria today that when you talk about nuclear energy, the first thing that comes to them is radiotherapy, radiodiagnosis, medical applications, medical physics, oncologists, radiology departments in the teaching hospital. So I'm happy the peaceful applications of nuclear energy, which is the non-power, is very common and knowledgeable in Nigeria. So I think that aspect gives a lot of impetus to accepting the nuclear technology, so to say, in Nigeria. Yeah,
well, if you mention it within the medical sector, people might understand and might immediately accept.
Yes.
But when you say that there's a nuclear energy commission, don't they look at you a little funny?
Yes, I think one thing people need to understand is that the Atomic Energy Commission, the mandate of the Atomic Energy Commission is to develop, deploy, and harness nuclear energy for socio-economic development of the country. Now, one can ask, how do we get nuclear energy in our socio-economic development? Now, the power applications of nuclear energy is all over the world known, how you can deploy nuclear energy for electricity generation, which Nigeria today needs that, and which we can maybe talk about it, how we are going to deploy nuclear energy. Now, the other thing again is nuclear energy can be applied in agriculture, in environment, in water resources, in other fields of our life and endeavor.
I know this, and yes. I'm sure, well, as you said, yes, more and more people are beginning to accept
exactly.
it. But I'm just saying that when you say that Nigeria has a nuclear commission, a nuclear energy commission, don't people look a little more, are they not skeptical like we do?
We do.
I mean, they're not surprised. Don't they act a bit surprised?
So let me tell you this. Since 1976, Nigeria has decided to use nuclear energy. And during that time, that is when they have promulgated a decree, which now is an act of the parliament, that establishes Nigeria Atomic Energy Commission. And during that time, the government of the day have agreed that why not we deploy applications of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes that time. And that is when we have established centers of excellence in Zaria and Ife, in Ahmadu Bello University Zaria and Obafemi Awolowo University in Ife. Those centers are to train the required manpower, to deploy the required facilities that can jump Nigeria into what I call nuclear family. And since that time, we have made substantive progress. Today,
have we? Since 1976 till now, we cannot exactly, apart from its uses in our hospitals, I don't think that we can actually point at one thing that we can say we're doing substantially with nuclear energy.
I can tell you today. Now, the Nigeria Research Reactor 1 at the Center for Energy Research and Training in Zaria, which came into operation in 2004, is 20 years now. And that reactor has helped in the agricultural field for soil fertility mapping and geochemical mapping. And the people in the agricultural sphere knows that this reactor has been helping them in mapping our agricultural fields.
Is it helping all over Nigeria, or is it just helping in Zaria?
No, all over Nigeria.
How does that work?
It works by taking soil samples from different parts of the country and analyzing those soils and be able to tell you the nutrients and composition of those soil. That means you can be able to establish what kind of crop can be utilized in that kind of land, and how much fertilizer can you apply in those fields. So this is one aspect. The geochemical mapping will also tell the mineral deposits and composition. We were able to help in analyzing what kind of mineral do you have in this state or in this part of the country. And today, mining is one of the major key issues that the federal government under President Tinubu is working to make sure that that aspect also contributes to economy.
Prof, that's why I asked you that question as to how people are accepting the use of nuclear energy around them. I know that, I mean, from even in the advanced world now, there's conversation around the use of certain equipment. For instance, microwaves that people used to use in their homes before. There's a little more, will I say, skepticism, especially when people think about how it can kill cells. They think it can also kill cells within the body, and the people are saying, oh, microwave is one of the causes of cancer. So this I don't want to call them myths, but they persist, don't they?
No, I think generally with all technologies, you may have these kind of challenges. But let me, for the avoidance of doubt, let me tell you this. You see, when you are sending these gamma rays into food materials, they are targeted. They are rays that have energy enough to kill the microbes, but lower enough to destroy your food material. Number one. The same thing we do when you are treating a patient for cancer in the medical field with a gamma ray or any irradiation that you want to expose that person to. You target to those cancer cells while covering or protecting the other parts of the body. So when you are going to do this, there are precise and sensitive experimental methods that you do, or let me call procedures that you have to undertake. So I don't see any patient that because you expose him to radiation to contain his cancer, you are killing him. But when they say about food exposed to radiation, they will start thinking, oh, this food cannot be eaten again. You see, genetically modified foods are modified through using nuclear techniques and other methods.
And
we call it mutation studies.
There's a whole controversy around
the whole controversy around it
is
because people feel that if you modify the food to make it bigger, more yielding, whatever, then those materials that you use in modifying the genetics or genes of those food crops, they can contain something that is harmful to the body. I don't want to join issues with those that have this notion. But as a scientist, when you are asking me, can you use genetically modified food? I will say yes.
Let me not take it too far away from the conversation now, but let's come back to the area of health, I mean, which is one of the places where we seem to be making progress. And I think we all can agree that nuclear energy has been deployed to some very good use. But there are still challenges in that particular sector. What are some of the challenges that you have noticed?
Yes, I think one of the major challenges which we have addressed with the Federal Ministry of Health, which we are also addressing up to now, which we have discussed with IEA Director General when he visited Nigeria, which he has also given us his words that he is going to step in to help Nigeria, is in the cancer irradiation. Cancer has become one of the greatest burdens that we have in Nigeria today, in Africa even. And Nigeria happens to have the leading numbers in cancer. And ordinarily, some of the people that we see dying from cancer ought not to have died from cancer because treatment is available all over the world. And why are we not having it in Nigeria is because of the facilities. We need to deploy some certain radiotherapy and radiodiagnosis facilities in our hospitals. We need to train our people in the hospitals to be able to manage those facilities from maintaining utilization and deploying these things in a safer way for our patients.
Speaking with health professionals, they say the equipment for cancer care is really expensive, and oftentimes they have to be purpose-built for hospitals. What sort of help is the IAEA offering, and really how can they really bring down the cost, especially for developing countries?
Yes, I think one thing I have to say thank you to IAEA and thank you to Nigeria for accepting to be part of IAEA is the projects that IAEA is mounting to support member states. And one of the projects to support member states is in the partnership of trying to do government-to-government co-sharing, number one. Then two, international partners who support IAEA in the funding of some of these projects that are menaced to developing countries, steps in sometimes to provide these facilities to those places that are in need. And then three, International Atomic Energy Agency has collaboration with vendors, with producers of those equipments, that they have it at the cost of production, let me say it, not much margins put to it, compared to if an individual or a hospital, private hospital, wants to buy it direct from the manufacturer. So now, having been with the IEA, IEA is willing and ready to support us in trying to bridge the gap between manufacturer of those equipments and us, the country. Two, the IEA will help us in getting the partners, international partners, that will support us in this intervention.
When I was speaking with Dr. Grossi, he did say that, the IAEA doesn't dictate the pace that any country, goes with nuclear development, especially for peaceful purposes. They only support as the country is ready. From what you have, experienced over the years and what you're currently seeing now, how would you rate the Tinubu administration in terms of its commitment to the development of nuclear energy, not just for health purposes, but also for in the area of
other sectors?
Exactly, especially for power.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's not because we are celebrating 1 year, but within this 1 year of President Tinubu, our commission has received a lot of support, particularly in our nuclear power program. I will give you an example. We have got approval of the Federal Executive Council for the National Nuclear Power Program way back in 2008. Now the implementation starts with the 19 infrastructural issues, which we have followed meticulously, including Integrated Nuclear Infrastructure Review Mission, which we have called the International Atomic Energy Agency and other experts of international to come and review where we are. We have moved from that phase to another phase, second phase, which again, based on the recommendations of the first phase, we are able to implement those phases. Now we have moved to complete the second phase. What needs is the third phase, which is the construction phase. But when this government came, this has been done since, and it has been lingering.
Since 2004?
Yes, since 2004 we have started.
We've only been on 2 phases.
Yes, but the third phase is the last phase.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 3 phases if you group the infrastructural issue into. The last phase is the construction, commissioning, and operation. So now, when the government, within 1 year, we were asked, what is the status? We give the status report. What is the hindrances? We gave the hindrances. And they have asked us to, okay, we can go ahead. And how do we go ahead? Who are the partners? Who are the vendors you have? We have been working with China. We have been working with Russia. We have been working with Korea. They have been training our personnel. So we have passed the phase of training now. We have decided which of the technology to use. We have passed that. We have identified where and when and what are the locations that can be able to accommodate this nuclear power plant.
Where are we looking at? I'm sure people want to know.
Yes, it's excellent. We started with identifying 10 locations in different parts of the geopolitical zones of the country. Mm-hmm. And then when the government has decided we are to start with 4 nuclear power plants and 2 in each of the locations, so we were asked to zero into 2 locations. So we have now zeroed into 2 most suitable locations, one in Kogi State, the other one in Akwa Ibom State. These are most suitable locations for the fact that all the parameters, all the indices, all the environmental impact assessment that we have done on those areas shows that this can be able to sustain it for a long period of time.
And the state government's welcoming of it?
Yes, we are very good with Kogi State government. In fact, at a point, Kogi State government is telling us that if the federal government is not ready to build these nuclear power plants, they are willing and ready to host this nuclear power and build those nuclear power plants. But because nuclear is the sole responsibility of federal government, we told them that it can be done, but it has to be with partnership with the federal government. We are talking with Akwa Ibom because the location that is in Akwa Ibom, which is between the Akwa Ibom State and Cross River State, a community called Itu, that location, we are still discussing with the people on that location. In nuclear technology, you need to have the buy-in and acceptability of the local communities. And that we are doing in advocacy and communication strategies that we have in trying to reach out. State government can show interest, but if the community is not willing to buy into, because majority of the workers will come from that community, and the community are the one to help in developing this technology, and the community are the one to host you with their land, with their farms and whatever. So this is why we are reaching direct to the communities. But I want to assure you that we have no problem with the state governments accepting it. We have no problem with federal government accepting to include nuclear in their own master plan. In fact, the Federal Ministry of Power has agreed to integrate nuclear as one of our in our energy mix.
I know that Nigeria's commitment to the IAEA is to deploy its nuclear resources for peaceful purposes, and we've stated very clearly where we want to use them. I think only last year we signed our 4th country program framework. That's what we did. However, has any conversation happened anywhere with Nigeria using nuclear for defense purposes?
Well, you are asking me a very difficult question. You see, one thing you have to understand, that's why our own organization is under the presidency. And that is why all over the world, application or use of nuclear technology is under the presidency. These are decisions that the federal government will take or have to take, how they want the government or the country to be run. From the onset, our government have accepted that we are going to use it for peaceful purposes. There was never a time when our government said we are going to use it for military purposes. It's a decision of government. We are working for government. And so I have to tell everybody to know that so far, Nigeria is using its nuclear technology for peaceful purposes.
But if ever you were to advise, because we know the advantage that the countries that have developed nuclear energy have, especially for defense purposes, would you say that it is trite, at least one African country should have nuclear capabilities, nuclear defense capabilities?
See, again, we are going back to advantages and disadvantages of having this kind of technology. We are a signatory to Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. We are a signatory to Nuclear-Free Zone of the Plendaba Free Zone in Africa. We are a signatory to Non-Alliance. We are a signatory to so many of the conventions on the non-use of nuclear weapons, let me say. In fact, as a country, we are part of the United Nations Disarmament Verification Team, which have been representing for many years now on behalf of government and people of Nigeria. And in that, we are 25 selected by the United Nations. And in our discussions is how do we disarm those already that have it, including Russia's, US, China.
Including the big five.
Yes.
And
they have accepted at the UN.
The extras now that have them.
Yeah.
Like North Korea.
Yes. So the United Nations have convinced them and they have agreed that they are going to start reducing their stockpiles. And that is what the UN Disarmament Verification Team are doing. The country, they compose of countries that have nuclear weapons and countries that doesn't have nuclear weapons. So Nigeria is privileged to be on that board, and I'm privileged to be nominated by my government to be on that board for more than 3-4 years now. We are working to identify what are the methods that we can adopt, not only in disarming them, but in verifying that their disarmament is complete and acceptable. This is to discourage those who want to go into it, not to go into it. We know many people are saying that we want to have it because somebody also have it. But again, it's like having something that can be a burden on you. Today, if Nigeria decides to have it, what do you think we want to use it for? Or we just have it for the sake of having it? Spend our own resources, little resources, to have it? So we have to think about it. But if everybody can agree to disarm or to reduce it or to remove the threat all over the world, then the world will be better off without a nuclear weapon.
I'm looking at that particular space. I mean, you've said that you will not advise the Nigerian government to go into that particular space. You mentioned the fact that you're a nuclear physicist by training. Are we seeing more and more young people showing interest in this area of science, nuclear physics? Are we getting more and more interest, or would you say that interest is dying in this particular area?
To be candid, interest is growing.
Interest is growing?
Interest is growing.
That's good news.
I'm astonished and surprised as to how the interest is growing. In those days, when we were going into physics as a degree course, many of our friends and parents were saying, why not go into engineering? Why will you read physics as a course? All these things. two facts. You spend so much energy in reading physics, and they think you end up as a teacher only. But today, we have just mentioned different applications of nuclear science. And if you are a physicist, you venture into becoming nuclear physicist, those applications need you. One of our scarce resources now in the health sector is medical physics. No people, we have few people going into oncology, radiology, and all this. They need the basic knowledge of physics to go into that. But with our commission, when we came, it was intentional. We go into training personnel, building capacity in all the stakeholders, in all the areas that we have talked about, in agri, in health, in environment, in water resource, all sectors.
So you say interest is growing?
Interest is growing.
This is in spite of a decline in general interest in sciences?
Exactly. Interest is growing. So when they saw the peaceful applications of nuclear science and technology in these various sectors, and there is a demand from these sectors for people who have this. That's why today I will tell you that Russia, China, Korea have agreed to be training our people in masters and PhD in nuclear science and technology, and a lot of them are coming out. And we have also partnered with Federal Ministry of Education to see how we can be able to develop curriculum for training this personnel, giving them the skills. And I'm happy to say that the Minister of Health, the Minister of Education, I have to thank him for that, for accepting and approving that our curriculum that we have developed jointly with them be deployed in our universities so that we can have skills in the field of nuclear science and technology.
What would you say is the next phase of development for Nigeria's nuclear energy sector?
2 stages. Stage 1, we have the Federal Executive Council to approve deployment of nuclear technology for power. We have submitted a memo to Mr. President, and we are full of hope that Mr. President will support us in that. We want to deploy it into 2 phases. In our phase 1, we want to deploy small modular reactors for the difficult to reach areas so that we can power them. They can be off-grid, or they can have a mini-grid to power those difficult to reach areas. Phase 2, we have conventional big power reactors, 1,000 or 1,200 megawatts each. 2 units of that, maybe for instance in Kogi, and other 2 units in Akwa Ibom will give us up to 4,800 megawatts injected into the national grid. The second thing again is we want Mr. President to help us in upgrading our own national grid. It is only when you upgrade and stabilize the grid that you can be able to inject the extra power that is coming from the nuclear, because that is going to assure Nigerians the stability of electricity for the next 100 years. The final one is the discourse. I think the distribution companies need a general overhaul so that the system of recovery of cost for these power plants will be easier. Once we can be able to get good pricing, we can be able to meter everybody, and we'll be able to recover costs from electricity distribution. And then not only Nigerian government, there are so many vendors and investors that are hanging in the winds that wants to come to Nigeria because of our size, because of our economy, and because of the market. Energy is one thing that if we get it right in Nigeria, we are going to get everything right. You cannot have train without electricity. The fast trains using electricity. You cannot have vending machines all over the place without electricity. These are the least. But when you come to the base load energy, which the nuclear technology can give, you will find out that all our industries, they need cheaper electricity. And electricity that is base load for heavy duty machines. And that can only come from nuclear. You cannot have, I'm sorry to say, you cannot have other sources of energy that can give you energy that can power these machines, these industrial machines, heavy duty machines, if not from a nuclear power plant. So there is so much advantage in our economy if we really want to turn the economy. And we are here as a commission, for as long as I remain the chairman of the commission, to continue to support the government and advise them on how to do that, how to get these things right. I'm working closely with the Ministry of Power, and I'm working closely with the Ministry of Science and Technology. And it is our hope Mr. President will support us to get this thing done.
Professor Yusuf Ahmed, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Well, that's the program tonight, but we want to hear from you. Please speak with us using the handle showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Good night.